Hi everybody, in this video we're going to be making a little fruit or vegetable, depending on what you want it to be, pendant. And it all started with this one that I made a really long time ago that I thought looked like a tomato. And I've had this one for a while. It's up on my website. As of the time of this video, it's available on my website. And this is oxidized copper. These other ones I made today, so they're raw copper. So then I made this little guy so I can remember how to do that design just today, practicing for making this video. And then once I made that and I remembered, this is the one that we're gonna make here in this video. So if you wanna see how to make this little guy, let's just get started. So I'm starting out with one piece of 20 gauge round wire. This is dead soft copper wire. Here's my little spool of it. Here's the 20 gauge. It's from riogrande.com, and I am using a piece that is 13 inches, but my stone is actually quite small. So if your stone is bigger, this is probably still adequate. My stone is just the tiniest bit over an inch, so about an inch, or I don't know, like 28 millimeters. And what I'm going to do, or actually, first of all, I'm also going to be using some half round wire. This is some 22 gauge half round wire. That's what I'm going to be using for my thinner wire to make the connections. If you don't have half round wire, you can use round wire. I'd probably recommend like a 28 or a 26 gauge thin round wire, but instead of just wrapping it around and around like we do with the half round, what I would recommend is you do like a little weaving pattern, because that holds together better and doesn't unravel since it's round wire. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our little piece of wire and we're going to fold it roughly in half. We're just trying to find the middle. So here in the middle, what we're gonna do is we're gonna just use our pliers. All my tools are linked down below the video. So we're gonna squish it like this, and then we're gonna take, let me just zoom in real quick. We're gonna take our pliers, we're gonna hold, can you see the little tip of the wire in there? We're going to hold that. I'm going to separate these out. I'm just going to hold it this way because I think you can see better. We're going to separate these out. And then, ooh, it's all flailing around. And then we're going to shape like a little leaf kind of shape by curving these portions here. Like this. And now this is optional, but I find that it makes things a lot easier because when we're gonna do like the next leaves as well, 20 gauge wire is a little thin. If you're working with a larger stone, I definitely recommend going up to like an 18 gauge wire because this wire can be quite flexible, like a little too flexible sometimes. So what I recommend is hammering this little leaf. So I'm just going to hammer so it's not loud off camera, just this one little leaf, and then we'll make the next few. Right, so once you hammer the wire, it looks kind of flat, and I was using an iron block to hammer on as well as a chasing hammer. So we're just going to put our pliers right here, and we're going to bend this wire back, and then we're going to put our pliers right there at the other side, and we're going to bend the other wire back. So this is what you should have at this point, and the little leaf is hammered, but up here is not. So the leaf is gonna not like come open as easily now because it's been reinforced by the hammering. So this next portion will be a little easier. So we're going to squish. And also, if you don't have like a solid metal wire, say you're using a round wire from the craft store, like artistic wire or something, you can't really hammer it because it's coated for the color, and so the coating will kind of get all smushed and broken on it if you hammer it. But this can work without hammering. I think it's a little easier. So we're going to squish the other as well. And now we're going to make our side leaves. So for the side leaves, it's really similar. The first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna make a little, it's like a little circle like that. And you can go ahead and do one at a time or do both. If you want them to be symmetrical, then you can just do both and make sure your little circles are symmetrical. But it doesn't really matter, I think, because if they're symmetrical, because, you know, plants often have different size and shape leaves. So I don't think they need to be perfectly the same. Then we're gonna squish our little circles like this, and then our other little circle, just gonna squish it. And in a similar way, so we're gonna hold it with our pliers like this, and we're going to just like open this up by pushing that way, by pushing down, and then open this up by pushing that wire, and then we're gonna turn this in. So see, that's forming that curve. We're turning, and then we're turning this wire as well, and we're making like a curved kind of leaf, and then here just grabbing it and pushing that up. All right, so now we're just gonna do the same thing here on this side. So we're just gonna open up the leaf, and then we're gonna shape it into a curved shape, and then up here just gonna fold that up. So we actually don't want this to perfectly come together like this. We want to have that little gap, because when we make our bale, it's gonna connect here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and hammer the other two leaves. Right, so it's been hammered. The wire is looking nice and flat. I do have a video that demonstrates hammering more. If you need that, I'll link it below. So I'm gonna just put this on top of my stone. I'm gonna hold it, and I'm gonna bend these wires kind of towards the back here, and all the way onto the back here. I'll try to hold it this way so you can see onto the back. Now we do want them to come together eventually. We just don't want them to come together right at the top here. So try to just kind of bring them together like this, because we're gonna wrap around the both of them. So our stone is like this, and here's the leaves from the front. Now, as you can see, they stick up quite a bit, so I try to like shape them around the stone and kind of push them down, push them onto the edges of the stone, and sometimes it's easier to do that with your pliers. And then also, if you remove the stone, you can just kind of curve the leaves a little bit as well. Not too much, because then it might not fit. All right, so now it's fitting the stone much better. So back to over here. we're gonna grab our half round wire, oops, and drop it. And we're gonna take the little end of it, we're gonna put it flat side down. So you just wanna hold that little end, and we're gonna twist the whole piece around and guide the half round wire down. The reason we have to do it this way is because if you wrap the half round wire around and around, since it's still connected to the spool, it's gonna get twisted. All right, so after a few wraps, this got a little bit discombobulated there. Just gonna trim this half round wire, this little tail end that we started with, in such a way so that the end of it ends up here on the inside where it's gonna get covered up by the stone. And you wanna do this kind of straight away. If you wrap a lot, it's going to be hard to slide. It's going to be almost like stuck, but because we only have like 4 or 5 wraps there, this kind of slides up much easier. So we're just going to slide it up to the top here, kind of squish it down, and now it's started and it's connected well, so we can just keep going with it. So you're going to keep going with it for quite a while because this is going to go all the way down your stone. So if I grab my stone here, where did it go? It's going to go all the way down your stone and a little extra, because the extra bit is going to go around this little curve. All right, let's check how we're doing. No, that actually is pretty good. So the way we're going to trim this half round wire is so the little end is going to be here on the front, I guess. Like this, because when we fold this up, it's actually gonna end up being on the stone and it's gonna get covered up by the stone. So what you want to do now is just kind of go over this whole little wrap and press down on that half round wire to make it nice and flat. All right, so if we grab our stone, kind of squeeze it back in there, and then we take this bit and we fold it. Make sure it's centered nicely. It's not like too much to any one side. We're folding it from the back to the front onto the stone like this. And then here we're going to open up these little wires. All right, and it's really important that this is symmetrical, because once you bend them to the back, it's going to be really hard to adjust. It's going to kind of lock this in place. All right. By symmetrical, I just mean like this part isn't like all the way to one side or anything. Like it looks nice and even. So once you bend them here on the back, what we're going to do is we're going to take them and we're going to try and like bring them together so that they meet up in the middle here like this. All right, they're meeting up in the middle. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap our half round wire around that, but it's pretty difficult to just get right in there. So again, just like I did before, I'm going to make a few wraps. I'm going to get it started, and then I'm going to slide that down. All right, so after a few wraps, I'm going to trim off that little end. I'm going to press down so that it's in here, it's hidden. So the little wire end is hidden. I'm just going to squish down this whole little wrap. And now you can kind of move it all the way down where these two wires meet up. And before you press it down against your stone all the way, you're going to continue this for a little bit because it needs to go all the way past here and then a little extra because it's going to be our bale. All right, that is long enough. I'm just going to trim it so that little wire end is in the front, because when we bend this bale over, you won't see the wire end. So now I'm just going to go over here and squish that whole thing down. Oh, and one thing that I just wanted to point out about the leaves. If you notice, the leaves are quite large because my stone is small, and also it's tricky to make super tiny leaves. But the purpose of the leaves is to hold the top of the stone. So this portion holds the bottom, this portion holds the top. So if you have like something super tiny up here, say you have a nice big stone, and so the leaves just cover up the little top portion, your stone might pop out like if you push on it. Mine's not because it's covering up like half the stone, but if your leaves are super tiny comparison to your stone, it might. So just keep that in mind, that they need to hold the top. So now this is our bale, and we're going to bend this forward. If you want, you can use like round nose pliers or some bale making pliers to help you make that nice little curve for the bale. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be trimming these wires. So these wires are going to need to go through here and around and make a little loop. So keeping that in mind, I'm leaving myself a little end like this so that it's enough wire for when I curve them. So I'm going to curve them almost like a little hook. And I want that little hook to go through here. So I'll just do one at a time. Okay, so that one's through. Now let's do this one. You can kind of lift up these wires a little bit if you don't have the gap in there like I do. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take these, and this little end, we're going to kind of point it down and make sure it's not here in the front. It's going there into the back. So that way, when you press down on it and you close that loop up, the wire end essentially is like pointing towards a stone and you can't see it. It's hidden. And then we're going to do the same thing here. So making this little loop and then squishing down the loop so that the wire end kind of goes away in there. It's tucked away. And that is it. You can make any little adjustments if you need to your leaves here. If this part got a little discombobulated, you can try and kind of adjust and straighten it up. Make sure everything is even. And that's it. That's our little fruit or vegetable pendant, depending on what you want it to be. And here's my other two again. Here's a little round one. So both of these use 20 gauge round base wire and 22 gauge half round wire. And then this one still uses a 22 gauge half round wire, but it uses a 19 gauge, so it's a little thicker and stronger because the stone is bigger. And it's also square wire for my little tomato. This one's a tomato, and I don't know what the other ones are. But that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.